in order to be successful on our feet, we have to have a complete comprehensive system. Now, what I mean by that is that there is kind of like a basic minimum requirement to be effective on our feet, not have any holes in our game. It doesn't have to be too crazy, right? You don't have to know thousands of techniques, but there are kind of like some minimum requirements to have everything you need to be successful on your feet. And so the things that I would point out first are being able to hand fight. And what I mean by hand fighting is I want to be able to prevent my opponent from getting to the tie-ups that they want to get to, and from using their tie-ups to control me so that they can set up their offense and shut down my offense. So I want to be able to shut them down. Meanwhile, I also want to be able to get to my control ties and be able to move and off balance my opponent to set up my offense, right? So that's what I mean by hand fighting, is I can shut them down as they're trying to control me with their hands, and I can get to the place where I can grab a hold of my opponent in the ways that I want to control him, right? And the ability to shut down their hand fighting and get to my positions is what I mean by being successful at hand fighting. So it's a skill that's needed, is the ability to hand fight. The second is I need to have a few control ties that I really like and that I feel comfortable with, right? And so what I mean by control ties are like an underhook, an overhook, a collar tie, an inside tie, an elbow tie, a 2-on-1. Those are all examples of control ties. And I should have at least 2 and preferably more control ties, at least 2 or 3 control ties that I feel really comfortable with. And I'm comfortable getting to them, using them to move my opponent, and then using them to set up my attacks from there, right? That's what I mean by control ties. So number 1, I need to be able to hand fight. Number 2, I need to have some control ties that I feel comfortable using. Number 3, I need to have some setups. And what I mean by setups is ways that I am off balancing or surprising my opponent so that I can do something that allows me to get to my attacks without just kind of saying, hey, I'm going to hit you with a double leg and then here's my double leg. I actually want to do something to off balance him first, or to threaten him in some way to set up my double leg, right? So number 1, hand fighting. Number 2, control ties. Number 3, setups. Number 4, I need to have at least 2 and preferably 3 attacks. And these could be, 2 or 3 leg attacks. These could be 2 or 3 low risk attacks. These could be, a duck under and a single. It could be a snap down to a snatch single, right? It could be a lot of different things, but I should have 2 and preferably 3 different attacks. And those attacks hopefully actually pair together in ways that set each other up. So if I have a snap down and a snatch single, every time I chase the single, it's causing my opponent to lower his head, which gives me the snap down. And every time I fight for the snap down, it's causing my opponent to stand up, which gives me the snatch single, right? And so number 1, I need to have the ability to hand fight. Number 2, I need to have some control ties. Number 3, I need to have some setups. Number 4, I need to have a couple of offensive moves. And then finally, number 5, I need to be able to finish, right? So once I get into those 2 or 3 different attacks, I need to be able to then have at least 2, maybe 3 finishes off of those attacks, different ways that I can take my opponent from their feet to the ground into a control position. And so if I have all of those things, and again, that might sound like a lot, but that's not everything, right? There's a ton of technique out there and you don't have to know it all. But if you can identify, I've built these skills, these are the techniques that I like, these are the positions that I like, you now have a map for a complete offensive game on your feet that will help you to be successful in the takedown game.